Good evening. Calling to order the the school committee of Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. We'll all rise and salute the flag. Mr. Galucci, would you call the roll?
Sure. Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. Caggiano,
Here.
Mr. Kingston,
Here.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Present.
Ms. Monterosso, Mr. Sinella,
Present.
Mayor Keefe.
Here. And just for the record, Ms. Monterosso is celebrating her one-year wedding anniversary with her wonderful husband, Victor, and we want to congratulate them on their anniversary. But she will not be in attendance this evening. Okay. First up, recognition. Oh. Okay.
I think Stacy had one. Oh.
Ms. Rizzo,
Pardon?
did you have a recognition? No.
Recognition.
Okay, apologies. Okay, we are voting on the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, can we take the two donations we got off and then vote on the rest, please?
Sure. So the two donations you wanted to leave off and then vote on the other items as a whole, correct?
Please.
Great. We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? No. None? Mr. Galucci, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes?
Mr. Caggiano,
Yes.
Mr. Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Monterosso, Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Mayor Keefe.
Yes.
And I asked for the two donations to be taken off, and I'm going to ask Dr. Kelly to let the viewing audience and the people in this room know what the wonderful donations were about.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. So the first donation that we're very excited about is a Reader to Readers book donation, which is coming to us by way of the United Way to the Lincoln School. And they've been offered over 600 books that will populate their school library. And just because we talked in earlier months about the program that Representative Giannino brought to us that is giving every student in the Revere Public Schools 10 books of their own, and every teacher an additional 20 books, 25 books for their classroom. This is in addition to all of that. So Principal Sermon is here tonight. She's going to be giving her presentation. We're very excited for that, but we're also very excited and hope that the school committee will support this gift, which we know is going to help all of the students in the Lincoln community. The second donation is coming to us by way of the Metro North YMCA, who is coming here tomorrow to give us $100 gift cards that we're going to be able to give out to students at all of our schools who are struggling financially. And what we're going to do is ration those out based on enrollment and make sure that students at every school, at least a couple of students at every school will get some. This is coming through the United Way, which is making me think that I might have misspoken about the books at the Lincoln School. Is it United Way, Cassie? That yours too?
Read to reader.
Oh, Readers to Readers, okay. So it's the United Way through the YMCA of the Metro North YMCA that'll be giving the gift cards, and we're really excited for that because we think it's going to change the holidays for some kids. And those are the two gifts.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to accept these generous donations.
Any discussion? None? Dr. Galucci, would you call a roll?
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Caggiano,
Yes.
Mr. Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Monterosso, Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Mayor Keefe.
Yes. Motion passes. The next is the student representative report.
Good afternoon. All right. So, with our student rep report, and just to kind of preface this, we finally have our junior student representative on the council. So, that's very exciting.
Would you care to introduce her?
What was that?
Would you care to introduce her to the group?
Yep. This is our student representative, Jalea Figueroa. And first time on the council, very exciting. And hopefully we will have many more meetings in the future. So this is great. Okay, so starting off with the student rep report, there it is. Just to preface this, that we have our student advisory board, which is made up of 5 members in compliance with Massachusetts general law. That this committee is elected by the student body. And through that, we actually have been able to reach out to many more students in the District of Revere, besides just in the high school. And I'm going to pass it over to the junior student rep to kind of elaborate on the visit to Garfield Middle School.
So, in order to fully represent Revere Public Schools as a whole, me and my peer Ada Luati went to GMS, and first thank you to Ms. Shepard for making it a super easy process. But we got a recap of what they were doing, and they have 2 plays that are set to perform this week. They have, they've had successful morning videos. They call it Good Morning Garfield, and they just give recaps of what's going on in the school, bring some school spirit to the students. And they have a successful student store that's been donated to by the school committee members. And the big takeaway that we got was, it was actually an accident that it happened, but they took the opportunity to ask us questions about what high school is like, since they had a lot of 8th graders. And they felt like really relieved, their nerves were calmed. So what we took away and we talked to them was that they would like more mentorship with high schoolers and get that communication going so that they can feel more at ease when they come to the high school.
I think it's great that the Student Advisory Board was able to have this opportunity. I, along with a couple other members, was a Garfield Middle School student, and I was also part of the GMS student government. So it's really great that now in my senior year that we were able to make this connection back to something that was so meaningful to me back when I was younger. Okay, so going into the Student Senate report, I just also want to briefly mention our Opportunities and Inclusion Subcommittee and how they're trying to expand their Youth Scholars Fellowship program to other schools such as Garfield Middle School. The reason I'm highlighting this from the previous meeting is because unlike schools like SBA and RMA, which are in closer proximity to the high school, Garfield Middle School is a lot farther. And they are requesting transportation aid and assistance from the school committee in order to complete the monthly program to Garfield Middle School, just for the sake of ensuring that everything is timely and to ensure that members are able to make it there safely, because one of the routes to Garfield Middle School from the high school is passing a really hard to cross highway. So just putting that out there, if any school committee member would like me to connect them to any of the officers part of that committee, I can do that for you, and they would love to chat about that. Moving on, also kind of want to highlight the NAN project. Again, same thing from last week, but I'm also highlighting it because I believe that they are also requesting transportation for that. That is something that's going to be a little bit a ways from now. May feels very far, especially for a senior. But putting that out there, putting that on your radars as something to keep an eye out.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked to Mr. Bowen yet about these transportation requests?
I'm not personally part of that subcommittee,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure that they have been in communication with some of the admin of
Okay.
the school. Again, I could check in with that, but the middle school project that they're doing of the Youth Scholars Fellowship Program, something that they have been carrying out in previous years. So I'd assume that Bowen is knowledgeable about this. Also, I'm here to also advertise our student engagement from our student engagement subcommittees, our multicultural night. It's going to be a big night of the semester one winter showcase, and we are imploring you guys, if please come. It's going to be a fun event, and you're going to see a ton of creativity from the students, a ton of achievement, and yeah, it's going to be great, like it's been in past years. Okay. So, club report, just want to also, this feels like I'm advertising a lot here, but we do want to help our high school. So our class of 2025 student council is doing our Deck the Halls event, which is a new event that's actually being held, today the 17th? Yeah, it's gonna be held tomorrow. And it's a fun event, fundraising, trying to get prom tickets and all that fun stuff lower for seniors in the future, and fundraising. So again, highly implore you, come have some fun, bring some festive spirit. All right, now, next fun bit. We have reached out to the JROTC, and we would like to highlight some of their accomplishments that they have had in at least the past 2 months. So they're having their MAP, or Marksmanship Academies and Physical Trainings competition, and they were also able to qualify for the National Army Postal in Camp Perry, Ohio. And here they're third in their brigade. So the notes that I have here to read is that the Patriots Battalion placed second in second of 11 in the regional participation, eighth of the 30th in the northern region and of the 3 national regions, and 66th out of the 339 Army JROTC participating in the year's competition. And going on to the next slide, we also have the JROTC's JLab, or Leadership Academic Goal, which was able to complete their first round of JLab and qualified for round 2 in February 2025. Although this is not part of the slides, I also wanted to give some recognition to a member of Revere High's JROTC, Cadet Amina Laraze, who was able to compete in an international karate tournament in Takasaki, Japan, and was able to place top 16 in the youth division, competing with students from all around the world, including countries like Brazil, Turkey, Kuwait, Japan, Italy, Spain, and of course, many, many more. So just wanted to give that recognition out here. The JROTC is doing really, really great things, along with many other clubs in Revere High. So this report was mostly just a lot of recognition for a lot of the achievements our students have had. And yeah, that concludes the student rep report. Thank you. If there's any questions. All right. Thank you.
Very nice and welcome. Okay, we have, this point of the meeting, we have open for public speak. If there's anyone, members of the public that wish to come up and speak, here's your opportunity. Dr. Kelly, would you see if there's anyone online that wishes to speak? Okay. Going once. We'll close that into the meeting. Okay, Dr. Kelly, Superintendent Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a number of presentations for the school committee tonight. Each one is going to be about 10 minutes in length, so we should be able to get through them relatively quickly. We're going to start first with the Abraham Lincoln School, and I mentioned before, Principal Sermon is here tonight, and she's going to talk about empowering every voice by fostering inclusion and support in our diverse community. So let me just pull up this presentation. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. The Lincoln has been working extremely hard in improving various aspects of the school to support students, whether it's having events, whether it's having initiatives in place. So that is why we have the title Empowering Every Voice by fostering inclusion and support in our diverse community. How do we make all students feel empowered and safe? We looked at the data from the school quality measure dashboard. When we reviewed it, we looked at some factors to make a decision. For school culture, our approval rate was very good. The teachers and students did this survey, and I want to say in the spring. So school culture, safety looks really good. The next slide, student physical safety. Overall, people feel safe. Now we have some growth. Student emotional safety. The students had some concerns, and we had to be very transparent about that. Some students feel like they get picked on. They feel like some kids are acting unsafe, and they're not seeing acts of kindness, which is a very important aspect of our school, of being kind to each other. So this is an area that we focused on. Student sense of belonging, they feel approval was great there. Student-teacher relationship, that was great as well. So what systems do we have in place at the Lincoln? We have restorative justice practice, which is a district-wide initiative. We have academic support. We have family support. We work very closely with the liaison who works with our families to make them feel welcome and any needs that they may need. We do various things to help support them. We had the food drive in November where we had, in our butterfly foyer, we collected canned goods, pasta, cereal boxes. Families had an opportunity to come after school to pick up items where no one could see that they're getting items, and we had bags available, and we made sure that it was very private for them. Students have an opportunity to do Word of the Week in quotes. Each grade has to choose a word and a quote. Sorry.
Am I on one slide?
No, you have to go. I'm just going. Sorry.
This one?
Yep. Thank you. So every class decides every week they have a word of the week and quote where kids are taking a part of their learning and learning new vocabulary and participating in the school aspect. So they make the decision. It is announced every morning, and they come down to the office to say the word and say the quote. We have our anti-bullying pledge, which we started last year. That's going very well. We have the posters up all around the building where students know we are an anti-bullying school. If they see something, speak up, report it, and let an adult know that this is happening. School-wide events, we have lots of events. Almost every month we try to have something. We had our Italian potluck dinner where the local restaurants donated lots of meals to our school for our potluck. We had school committee members that were also part of it, that donated as well. We appreciate that. We had our Hispanic poster contest. That was in October. And we're planning to have a couple events coming up for Black History Month, Women's History Month, and just celebrating the diverse culture we have in our school. Partnership, as mentioned before, we have Reader to Reader. Parent volunteers. We have now started an initiative where parents can come in for lunch and recess to help in the CAF. And parents, we did a training with them. We explained what the expectations are. And that's going well. We have a few parents that has volunteered to help during lunch and recess. They are Corey cleared. We made sure that it was all in place. Classroom choice, where students are taking a part of the learning aspect, where they're learning about how to decide what makes them learn something. After school club, we have a new club, handwriting club. A lot of kids signed up for that, and I love handwriting. I thought it was very important because all we do is technology now. We're not practicing writing skills. So two of our teachers are the after-school teachers for that. Miss Reynolds, a second grade teacher, third grade teacher, Miss Arnold. They work together after school Tuesday and Thursdays, and they work with kids, and they're doing fun activities with writing. Student council, we have a student council, which we had last year. They decide our dress down every month. Whenever we have a half day, they decide what we're going to wear, and they make decisions around the school. And we have our challenge accepted. That's our new theme for the school year. Every month, the Lincoln School has a theme, and it is our focus. So we had, let me see, we did the food drive was one of them. I want to say second grade did that one. This month, kindergarten chose the theme. For the challenge, they had to bring families were able to donate hats and gloves for students who may need them, and we have them in the front for families to just get a hat and glove for the winter. So one important aspect of empowering our students and families is actively engaging our families when they come to the school and actively engaging the students constantly and making them see the things that we have going on. So for American Education Week, we had a huge bulletin board where parents can come in and sign and write a kudos to their kids. You're doing a great job, and parents were able to sign off, and we have a couple of those bulletin boards up. And we also had it up for parent-teacher conference as well, where parents can write a little note to their student. And that's our tree for the hats and gloves. That's in the front lobby of the school with all the hats and gloves on it. Our anti-bullying pledge, which I mentioned, and that is our literacy event we had in October. No, I want to say early November. I'm sorry, November. We had a family, one of our parents donated lots of backpacks to our school, so kids were able to get backpacks in the beginning of the school year. We have a safety assembly to make sure we're reinforcing that we are making sure kids feel safe. We had this in the beginning of the year. And these are just pictures from some of the events we've had at the Lincoln. One more. For American Education Week, we wanted to make sure, since they are part of our school community, we do not want to forget our cafeteria workers, our bus drivers. We made them special cards to acknowledge them, and we had them sent to them, to the driver, to our cafeteria worker. We did one for the crossing guard. Anyone who's part of our school community, we want them to know that they're part of our school, and we do see that all the hard work that they put into what they do. And that is it.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Kingston?
I was talking to a newcomer student at the Garfield, and he only writes in cursive because he was never taught where he came from to write in print. So he only knows cursive, and I thought it was interesting because our kids don't. And our kids couldn't read what he was writing, even though it was cursive. So I'm glad you're kind of looking at the cursive side of the world. Thank you. Also, we teach financial, I don't want to mention names. The credit union does a program with financial literacy. And if you don't do cursive, how do you sign your name?
Right.
It's a huge problem. Yeah, that's what they do is scribble, but it's pretty hard to scribble on a legal document when they get older. So I'm glad we're looking at cursive because, believe it or not, it's a problem. Thank
And
you.
the teachers are doing it where it's age appropriate, where they have like K through 2 are doing basic writing, and then the upper grades are learning how to write in handwriting. But it's really nice to see the work they're doing, and parents were all signed up for it. They really love it.
Thank you.
Ms. Rizzo?
I just want to say thank you, and most of our schools do it, but thank you for including all the school community, our custodians, our cafeteria, our bus drivers. These are students that they see them every day just as much as their teachers, and may be more comfortable with one of these if they had to go with an issue. So thank you for including them.
Our unspoken heroes, we have to make sure we acknowledge
Yep.
them. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Principal Sermon. Okay, the next item on the superintendent's report is actually the presentation from City Lab High School, which is going to tell us what the heck is an ELO.
I'm going to be really brief. Thank you. It's on now? Okay. Sorry, I'm going to be really brief. It's also my anniversary today, so. Thank you. So yes, what the heck is an ELO? I know I'm thankful for all of you guys that follow us online and say really positive comments. But when people often look at what we're doing, they just think we're on field trips. And it's important for the community to know we're not just going out and playing all day. So what the heck is an ELO? It's an acronym for Experiential Learning Opportunities, and we made a collective decision as a school community that this is how we were going to do school from now on. When I say that we made a decision as a school community, it truly came from data from students, from family, from the reaction that we got from the community, and from incoming data from students in their interviews. And the first set of data that we looked at was when do kids come to school? And that started to stick out that the days the teachers were really changing it up and doing these opportunities in their classroom, or when we do go outside, attendance was just higher. And that's important. If the kids aren't coming to school, there's a problem. When we asked students, incoming students, when we interviewed them, like, what do you like about it? And they're like, well, school looks fun over here. We see what you guys are doing and it looks great. Students were saying that they couldn't sit still. It's difficult to sit in a classroom from block after block, and they were bored. So after year one, we were like, we have to do something. We just can't lecture anymore. So that's really what we decided, that we would become a different school and we would do school differently. So over the past 3 years, we have been in the school model, and the data has shown us that we have better student outcomes when we use experiential learning instructional practices at City Lab. Like I said, most importantly, attendance data. As some of you know, before we did this experiment, our student attendance was between 30 and 40%. Just this fall, our attendance has jumped up to 92%. Students genuinely love coming to school, and that makes me happy to see full hallways. My first year here, there was no kids, and that was really because of COVID. It wasn't just because of what was going on there, but there were no children at all. And then when kids did come back, it still felt like there were no kids. So to see full hallways, students laughing, and students looking forward to what the next ELO was, it makes me very happy. It makes our teachers happy. I love that the school has adopted the acronym ELO. It was very important to change the language and stop saying field trip, because that's not what we're doing. So the ELO is very intentional. We want kids to say that so they know that's what's happening. We're learning a different way today. So when you hear us say that, it's not that we're trying to give you more educational jargon to get lost in. It's so kids know what's happening every day. It's important to know it's not about field trips. It's about deeper learning, hands-on learning, and real-world experiences that connect our students' lives to everything that we do every day. We were in our MTSS training last week, and we were trying to compare where those MTSS guidelines support the work that we're doing in Revere. And something stuck out to me, and it said, we do not have struggling students. We have instruction, curriculum, and school cultures that are struggling to build on student strengths and address students' academic and SEL needs. And it just really resonated with me, because that is what we're doing. We saw a need, and we answered the call. So that's what an ELO is. And Mr. Blaisdell is the king of the ELO. So I'm going to have him really break down how we got here, what we've been doing this year, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
Hello everyone, my name is Nick Blaisdell. I'm a teacher at City Lab, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what ELOs are, not to be confused with the band. But an ELO at City Lab is an experiential learning opportunity. That's what the acronym stands for. And the whole idea of an ELO is to move away from a traditional model of teaching and learning, where basically the idea of the sage on the stage, or even other models of learning where we're doing, like say, packets or activities or worksheets. An ELO is about creating an experience for students to remember. The research shows that people more likely remember things, and things get stored into their long-term memory if it is an experience. So at City Lab, we've basically made it part of our mission to make it ELOs part of our whole experience for our students. And we've started this work year one with the whole idea of City Lab, the city as a lab, and moving outside of the four walls of a classroom. In our first year, as you can see on the slides, we started our first year program with an exploratory program. This was kind of our initial first step into ELOs. So the way this program works, which it still continues, is every Wednesday, students will go periods 6 and 7 outside, grades 9 and 10. Students will go outside of the building. We have partnerships with Artists for Humanity for students who are interested in art pathways, ZoomX for students who are interested in music, video production. At one point, we had a partnership with Legal Seafood, students who are interested in the culinary program and such. And the whole idea was getting students out of the building and learning out in the community. So this was really successful our first year. Students were looking forward to every Wednesday, specifically period 6 and 7. Students were actually sometimes really bummed out sometimes when we had half days, because then we wouldn't necessarily have the second half of the day. As Dr. Mulligan mentioned, our attendance was one increasing significantly year over year from Seacoast into City Lab. But also specifically we noticed in our meetings that our attendance on Wednesdays was particularly high. So going into year 2, if we go to the next slide, Dr. Kelly, thank you. Going into year 2, we tried expanding on this success that we've been seeing on Wednesdays by basically making an expectation for all teachers to try to create at least 2 ELOs per month per class. So this includes things both inside and outside of the building. There was an initial confusion, as Dr. Wheeler mentioned, the idea of ELOs just being field trips. So we did try to step away from that a lot during the second year, and the idea of an experiential learning could be happening inside of a classroom as well as outside of a classroom. So just some recent examples of things in the last, I think this is actually from the last couple weeks, just to say to have some examples. Our math teacher was using the school vending machine to teach the idea of a function, replacing some of the drinks in there to show students how a function needs to function for it to function, right? Our Japanese teacher had students Zoom calling with students in Japan. And then also in terms of outside of the building, students were able to go to the Harvard Museum of Natural History. On top of that, our grade 10 has been doing a few different partner programs, but basically as of year 2 and carrying on now as well, all teachers are expected to have at least 2 ELOs per month per class. So this was year 2, and now going into year 3, one of the biggest partnerships we had in terms of ELOs and experiential learning at City Lab is our partnership with Hale Education. So Hale Education is an outdoor leadership learning facility in Westwood, Massachusetts. And basically our program is that every Tuesday and Thursday, our entire sophomore class will travels by bus to Hale facilities. During this time, students still get their core subjects, English, math, history, science, etc. However, they get it in an outdoor experiential fashion. So, for example, I teach world history primarily. So instead of, say, teaching students about, say, the trenches of World War I by reading articles out of the textbook and answering questions at the end, we actually would create a simulation where students would actually engage in, say, trench warfare, for example. Or instead of learning about the alliances of World War I, we'd have students simulate that by actually creating alliance systems and passing telegrams and telegraphs to each other in this outdoor space. All subjects have been having a lot of fun and doing a lot of try to increase the rigor by pushing our own teaching forward. Because as a teacher, it can get, one, pretty repetitive doing the same things over and over again, but also it does force us to push our instruction even further. It's also a lot of fun. For example, in a physics lesson, they had me suspended 30 feet in the air as a pendulum, learning about motion. So this is one of our big pushes for grade 10 for ELOs for this school year. Another component of Hale, if we can go to the next slide, is the outdoor leadership component. So obviously our first and foremost priority at Hale Education is the students' education in terms of their core subjects. Additionally, another part of this though is the idea of outdoor leadership and just leadership skills in general. So at Hale Education, we have these things called outdoor leadership labs, which are, I guess the easiest way to think about it is if you think about the TV show Survivor. Things that such, we're basically forcing students to really push their leadership skills, public speaking skills, teamwork skills, and decision making through these outdoor leadership challenges. So positive outcomes of ELOs. Oh, yeah, so you can go to the next slide. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Positive outcomes of ELOs, and as someone who's been at City Lab for the last 3 years, is one, we've seen a massive increase in attendance, and I've just seen that, obviously this is the data, but also just, as Dr. Mulligan mentioned, myself, just going from seeing more or less empty hallways to completely full hallways. Going from seeing most students on Wednesdays to now seeing students pretty much every day is a huge, huge improvement. So we're seeing a major increase in attendance. Students are excited. Students are actually bummed out when they're missing out on some of these things. Especially the mornings we're going to Hale by bus, my inbox is blowing up. 7:54, the bus is running late, the train's running late, this is running late. Just students really begging me not to leave without them. Very excited to come. And then also sending me very sad messages when they miss it. Which also shows we've seen a lot higher engagement. Like we said, students are very excited to be part of these. Students are disappointed when they miss them. And on top of that, as the research supports, students are remembering these things. It's very helpful when I'm teaching in class. I can recall now, it's like, for example, we've been doing a not so exciting thing in my world history class, a document-based question this week. But I can recall, oh, remember that time at Hale we did the Alliance activity. Remember at that time at Hale we did the Imperialism activity. It really ties all this stuff together, and students are remembering it in a way that I'm seeing is more than previous years. And then lastly, we've been really working on trying to connect this to the pathway exploration. So students at City Lab have the opportunity to join a pathway their junior and senior year and really commit to a discipline and get college level education for that. So these ELOs are really helping students, one, think about, especially the early years, 9th and 10th grade, what pathway they're interested in, and helping them really decide what they would like to do when they get to there. Because in the previous years, our first couple of years, students would get to junior, senior year, and still weren't really sure where they want to commit. They might jump from one to the other. These ELOs really help students solidify what they're into, what they're not into, and where they want to go going forward. So, yeah.
Thank you. Very good. Ms. Rizzo?
Well, thank you first and foremost for transferring over to City Lab from the high school. I think it's a great opportunity for our students, no matter where you go. But right now, at the beginning of that program, you were really a plus for the program. With the ELO, I really appreciate how our students are learning by doing things, analyzing all their experiences, maybe even clarifying their values, and definitely how they learn how to contribute to the community. So I really love the projects. I'm glad there's 2 a month now for each of the subjects. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great work. Very proud of what's going on over there, and I know that you have a very strong leader. So
Definitely.
Good job. Keep up the great work. We look forward to hearing more.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next, we're going to hear from our humanities department. Dr. Porter and Ms. Supas are here to share some information about adult professional learning.
All right. Hi, folks. Thank you for having us. So Brianna and I are going to talk to you a little bit about some of the work we do with adult professional learning. So we just heard some amazing stories of student learning, and now we're going to flip it over to adult learning.
So today's learning outcomes, our goals for today are to share some examples of adult professional learning we are doing to support teachers in RPS, and also highlight the connection between adult learning and student learning.
Okay. All right. So last time we had presented in the spring, we shared the same overall focus for humanities. So we're just zooming in right here on the adult professional learning piece, which is a place where our office spends a lot of our working time.
Tell me if you want me to click any of these lines.
Nope. Okay. Nope, we're good. Thank you. Okay. So I have this quote. This is like a broken record quote for me. I did not invent it, but I use it when I'm teaching grad classes. We use it all the time working with adults. Adult learning and student learning are symmetrical. So that means there are a lot of elements that you would use when you're learning with students that you would want to model when you're learning with adults. Things like honoring folks' background, giving people choice. So sometimes folks think, oh, it's very different when you're working with adults than it is working with students, but not so much. We also want to mirror what we would expect to happen in a classroom. So we try to do that when we're planning learning for adults.
So the learning principles we're going to focus in on today are learning experiences should be learning centered, i.e. the learner does a majority of the talking and thinking, and we really just heard a lot of great examples of that at City Lab. Learners need choice, which was another great thing that was just presented to us. Learners come with extensive background, knowledge, and experience that can be utilized in the construction of new knowledge, and Mr. Blaisdell really highlighted that, like when students come back into the classroom, they're having that as well. And then also number 4, learning is a collaborative process. So in designing learning for adults, we want to mirror some of the same structures we would expect to see in a classroom. So that is ownership, choice, and collaboration. Like you might see lecture style often, but we really, which is sometimes appropriate, but really we want to get into that student-centered environment.
That was for our folks of the 80s there, including ourselves. So we have that Bueller picture that we're trying to move away from. All right. So this is just to highlight our office, really. Like I said, we spend a lot of our time in designing adult professional learning for Revere Public Schools. This is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the key areas that we've been working on several years. So one of the audiences that we work a lot with are our coaches. So our consulting teachers and our literacy coaches. Brianna also supports Dr. Costa with the math coaches. We meet with our literacy coaches 1 time a week to support their professional learning. We host all the coaches and consulting teachers 1 time a month to support their learning. We also organize professional development with our partners. So for example, TNTP or the Collaborative Classroom.
And then in the middle column there, you'll see our audience as all educators. So the directors work on creating many different types of options for those directors meetings. We have 10 hours every year, and we actually have 42 sessions that create choice. The teachers have choice over what session they want to go to. We meet with PGT. They meet with PGT weekly. They have professional learning for programs and resources, and that varies across the different programs that we have. We also have the self-directed study plan, which is part of our ed growth cycle. We also engage in many different learning walks across all departments, and that includes participation in debrief. So that's a really rich learning experience for our educators.
So one of the...
Just before you go on, can I just point out, these are all live links for the school committee. So
Yes.
if you click on this link, it will give you the list of all of the director meetings.
Yep.
And likewise, these links over here will show you how instruction is differentiated for the adults in our community, the same way we expect it to be for kids.
That's perfect, Dr. Kelly. So we have the new teacher audience here. We wanted to make a point that this is not just for our veteran teachers. I'm one of the folks that oversees new teacher mentoring and induction. We have 2 different pathways depending on if you are returning to us, you were hired mid-year, or if you're a brand new hire. So we realize you'd need different professional learning. We have the mentoring program, which is individual. So whether you've taught for 10, 15 years, or you're brand new, you'd be assigned someone to support your learning. If you click on the link, you don't have to click on it now, but even our new teacher PD meetings, the 2 we held in the fall, folks had choice that they could choose the meetings that they were going to, even though the topic for that was working with English learners or working with our special education students. So always mirroring that idea of choice and differentiating what we're doing based on the folks that we're presenting to.
Go to the next slide, please. If you look over to the left-hand column, we, Christina and I, designed PD for coaches to support their learning and then turnkey that to teachers. So we had them the coaches came up with areas of focus, which were rooted in our district goals. And if you notice and highlighted in blue, looking at student work and sorry, I can't read this, instructional changes and next steps, returning to data cycles. So we're really working on looking at data, going back to the data and going into cycles and really creating a plan for there and helping teachers understand how to do that. And then also this year we're really working towards building the MTSS system in K through 12. So we're engaging district-wide, all teachers and all administrators in that work.
And then what we have here, we're going to try to give a briefer example of this. So if those are our goals, how do we do this work with adults? You have a whole section of handouts that go with this. I'm Italian, so more is more. There's always more stuff for you to look at after the fact if it's helpful. What we've included in the handouts that came with the presentation was to support this focus on looking at student work, to inform our instruction in the classroom. Brianna and I started with PD for the literacy coaches. In that PD, we gave them a choice between a bunch of different articles that they could read on designing effective, looking at student work protocols. Then they got together in smaller groups and thought of some of the data sources that they had that they could use with teachers. The second example, we had a more focused PD for our secondary coaches with one of our partners, TNTP. So they specifically worked with them on a PDSA, which is Plan, Do, Study, Act protocol of looking at student work. From there, Dr. Kelly, if you want to go to the next slide, I have an example from high school English. So that's a lot of professional learning for the coaches, and then they went and the coaches support the PGT facilitators. So this comes from grade 10 ELA at the high school. All of the grade 10 teachers participated in this. They used a version of this protocol for looking at student work from their Things Fall Apart unit, which is a relatively new unit. And you'll see they all had to upload student work, and they used a protocol to go through that. I was able to attend, Miss Riley was able to attend, so we can watch what the teachers are doing and support the work of the coaches. Go to the next slide, please.
In the next slide, you're going to see the timeline that we have for this district-wide work with our MTSS system that I had previously mentioned. So in this work, we had summer work over the summer with our coaches and our interventionists to create supports for students within Tier 2. So we have our core curriculum, which is Tier 1, and we're looking for ways to support students that need extra scaffolding. So that went on, and then we ended up training our administration at the beginning of the year. Then we continued with this work and with our PGT facilitators. So the idea is that we're using this protocol to look at student work, to engage the teachers in ways in which to support students when they are not making Tier 1 gains. And so our next, if you look, that's a timeline, our next training just occurred, well, our last training just occurred in December with the PGT facilitators and all the admin, and then following up in the spring, we're going to start doing learning walks to see how that work is coming about in each building.
And that's it. We'd take any questions that you had. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any of the committee have questions? Good work.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next item on the superintendent's report is an update, really, from the special education team on the redesign that we implemented or started to implement last year. And our directors are here to share some information.
One thing I'm just going to... there's a scrapbook coming around that goes with some of the slides that the team will be presenting, specifically to slide 8. It has pictures of students, so it is confidential, so I'll collect them back. But we went with paper copies.
It's our favorite part of the whole presentation. Hello and thanks for having us. Katie, Lisa, and I are really excited to share out updates related to the redesign, but first I wanted to do a bit of a recap and an overview. Initially, stakeholders came together to review our special education programming, and the focus was on ensuring that all of our programs provided the absolute best opportunities for students. The work was guided by teachers, paras, parents, and administrators, and the result was the redesign of our special education programs. One of the most important elements the redesign committee cited was to limit transitions between schools, and this has allowed for students to have customized schedules. For example, a student with strengths in math that is in a specialized program can join a math inclusion class now. We have streamlined, expanded the Ignite programming at Beachmont and Wayland, and we've also expanded middle school special education and the continuum of supports. These changes ensure that we meet the vision of increasing full inclusion opportunities for all students, and most importantly, they provide a more streamlined version of the K-12 journey for our students. With that, I'll turn it over to Katie and Lisa to share out some specific updates related to each program.
I'm so excited to be here today to share updates on the special education redesign. This year, the Capture language-based program has expanded to include middle school support at SBA and more inclusion opportunities at the Lincoln. These shifts create more vertical alignment between elementary and middle school programming. Now, Capture students are able to be serviced at 2 out of the 3 middle schools. To support the expansion of the Capture program, Revere has partnered with Landmark Outreach Consulting. Landmark Outreach is renowned for its professional development. The outreach program is designed to empower students with language-based learning disabilities by training teachers in proven learning strategies. Our Landmark consultants are former teachers and school leaders who bring their expertise from the Landmark School. This year, Landmark has provided professional development to SBA and Lincoln teachers. In addition, Landmark has begun coaching cycles to provide individual team support. And thank you to the admin and teachers at the SBA and Lincoln for supporting the Capture program.
Yep, just one more, right there. Thank you very much for having us tonight. As you may recall, the original Ignite program, formerly known as the ASD track, was split between 2 schools at the elementary level, the Beachmont and the Wayland. Students attended the Beachmont for grades pre-K to 1, then were moved across the city to the Wayland School for grades 2 through 5. From there, students transitioned directly to the RMA for middle school before heading off to the high school. As you can see, the early educational journey for a student in the Ignite program was a bit splintered, as it included attending 2 elementary schools, sometimes 3, depending on a student's pre-K experience, before reaching middle school. Therefore, through our redesign, we streamlined and expanded our Ignite program. At the elementary level, 2 complete K-5 pathways were created, one at the Beachmont and one at the Wayland. Students who reside in West Revere, Wayland, Lincoln, and Hill neighborhoods attend the Wayland School. Students residing in East Revere, the Beachmont, Garfield, and Paul Revere neighborhoods attend the Beachmont School. As a result of the expansion, our students remain at one school with their peers throughout their elementary school career, fostering a sense of community and continuity. Ignite program at the middle school has also been expanded, thus allowing students to be serviced at 2 out of 3 of our middle schools. The streamlined model benefits students, teachers, and families by strengthening peer relationships and promoting a more cohesive learning environment and an overall more supportive atmosphere. Can you just, next slide. Thank you. We are thrilled to be working with Kathleen Quill. Dr. Quill is a developmental psycholinguist whose clinical and academic work spans over 40 years. She is a researcher, published author, and is an adjunct professor at Endicott College, where she is currently teaching in the ABA Autism program. Dr. Quill has visited both the Beachmont and the Wayland schools and has met with building leadership and teaching teams. She will continue to collaborate with us to refine the Ignite program by offering guidance, consultation, and skill building in academic and behavioral expectations. The Special Education Department would like to thank the administration, coordinators, and teaching teams at both the Wayland and Beachmont schools for their collaboration and dedication to this work.
As you may recall, Ascend programs are now housed at the Garfield complex in RHS. The Ascend Middle School was relocated to the Garfield Middle School to maximize the use of community resources in order to provide additional transitional skills earlier in a student's educational journey. As I highlight these updates, please feel free to flip through the scrapbook passed out by Dr. Galucci. We are proud to say within 4 months, multiple transition and inclusive opportunities have been put in place at GMS. Special thanks to GMS admin, teachers, paras, Kristen Cormier-Murphy, Connor O'Keefe, Donna Page, Matt Nazaro, Annie Waters, and Tanya Amato for supporting these meaningful opportunities. The Special Education Office has purchased Charlie cards for the Ascend classes at the secondary level. At GMS, these students have participated in travel training experiences. For example, the class walked from GMS to the Revere Beach Tea Station to practice travel training to the Wonderland Station. Students have also taken part in walking field trips to Revere Beach as part of their adaptive PE classes with Mr. Nazaro. Other opportunities include the students taking swimming lessons at the GMS pool, unified PE, and adaptive art. Beginning authentic transition planning and training at the middle school level will allow the students to build and expand these skills at RHS. Thank you. At RHS, students in the Strive postgraduate program have begun doing cooking lessons at the RHS CAF, and additionally, students have continued their internships at the Chelsea District Court, Revere Parks and Recreation, and UMass Boston while auditing classes. This year, 2 new community-based internships have started at the RMA CAF and the RHS Library. The students from the RHS Strive program support breakfast at the RMA and support the RHS Library Check-In. The skills practiced in both the Ascend and the Strive program will transfer to their personal and professional lives, ensuring greater independence and supporting each student's vision. Next slide, please. The Propel program was relocated to the RMA this year. Now the RMA houses both the Excel SLG and the Propel under the same roof. This change was designed to support individual students' various needs without changing schools. Now, students are able to have hybrid schedules within the RMA, Excel and Propel programming. Next slide, please. The RMA has welcomed students in their Propel program into their community. Unified Sports has expanded to the RMA to pilot Unified Bocce, a club at the middle school level. Students from general education, inclusion, and the Propel program came together to join the Unified Bocce Club. The RMA provided a pep rally to send off the students before heading off to their bocce tournament to compete against different districts. Thank you to the RMA and teachers and staff for their support with the expansion of Unified Sports. Thank you very much.
Looking ahead, we're going to continue the collaboration with consultants and the expansion of PD and programming, the goal being to offer more inclusion opportunities and various paths to graduation. Throughout this presentation and on previous occasions, you've heard the details and logistics of the redesign. But to close, I want to emphasize that the overarching purpose was and is to design a plan that is grounded in the belief that all students can learn and that we must provide opportunities that challenge, include, and encourage them. We very much appreciate the work of building administration, the teacher teams, and the support of the school committee in this work. We've made great strides in this short amount of time, and we look forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you. Any of the committee members? Mr. Snella?
Just curious, they had a bocce tournament?
They did.
Don't be jealous, Fred.
It was on actually Halloween. I can't remember.
Where?
At another district school gym.
Okay, but they do have the new Sullivan Park on the beach, has 2 courts.
Oh.
The senior center has an indoor court.
Oh.
Ooh.
I'm writing this down.
The Wayland School has one on the corner of
It was early.
New Home.
Oh.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to be practicing, and then we're going to crush it.
The senior center actually has a tournament with the Chelsea Senior Center.
Oh.
They have it's a longer court, it's different. But when we were younger, they had probably equal bocce courts to population.
When we had Italians.
In the stadium, they used to have 2 courts there. So it's having a resurrection. But it's,
Oh, nice.
so,
You should come.
I played.
Okay.
Maybe you can give us some tips.
But no, it's interesting because it's skills, at the Jack Satter house, the average age is, and they'll help them get up and everything. So I mean, it's something that anyone can do. So it's just, probably we can arrange maybe a field trip or something.
Yes,
That would be
absolutely.
amazing. Great.
Yeah.
I was in a bocce league at one point too.
Ms. Rizzo?
I really like the fact that you're working with Landmark, and I hope it can keep going, and it's great collaboration. And I wanted to say that my favorite part of today that made me so happy was looking at the Revere High School redesign team photos presentation this morning, because it was absolutely stunning. But to tell you the truth, this takes the cake. Looking at these faces, I'm sorry, Mr. Dakin, but these faces come first. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Snell has something else.
Just one more, the mayor supports bocce. Shirts to prove it.
You haven't brought me home a trophy yet, just want to say, Mrs. Snell.
I prayed.
3 years I've been.
Until last year, they had a tournament on the beach, right across from the police station. Different teams, and, they lay out strips of, I don't know, but that was nice. You had to make sure the time was going on. But, bocce's alive and well in Revere, continue.
Carry on the tradition.
Thank you. Should we have a separate subcommittee on bocce, Mrs. Snell?
I know,
I'm just- I think we found something.
Give us some tips.
Yeah,
You have to remember one thing, it's round.
that's good. Thank you. And yes, in fairness, Mr. Snelli, I keep sponsoring this team. I'm expecting a return with a trophy 1 year, please. Next year, we got it.
We got walking billboards.
Is there bocce courts at the new high school?
Not currently.
No, we got the person right now to talk to.
Add that in. Mr. Sonoma, put the motion in.
The next item is, speaking of the high school, the next item is the RHS building update. Mr. Dakin.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can follow up bocce talk, but I'll try. Dr. Kelly, do you happen to be able to put those up? Thank you. So we're coming to the conclusion of the design development phase in the next few months, and I wanted to come and sort of give a little look ahead of what's going on in the next couple of months. This is a little bit of a dry presentation. Next month's that we'll talk about in a minute will be a lot more fun. Mrs. Rizzo sort of previewed that. We've been going through a lot of coordination meetings with various groups and are leading into really being able to summarize with graphics, with plans, the results of what we've been doing as a team since June. So right now, what's on the screen is the first page is a design development completion overview. We're here for this update tonight. We're going to do a similar update and some busy work with the building committee tomorrow night. On January 9th and 16th, the design team owes the final design development drawings to the estimating teams. We always do 2 parallel independent estimates to make sure that we really have an understanding of the overall costs. In January, on the 22nd, we have a school building committee meeting. So as we, the team behind the scenes, are digging into estimates for the middle of January into February, we're going to present on January 22nd the scope results of the design development phase. By scope, I mean the actual building, updated renderings, plans, site plans, etc. Much more fun than seeing a bunch of dates on the screen. I'd like to return to this after I just buzz through these slides because we would like to come back to the school committee and run that same sort of update in January. We'd like to do the same in February and March with different topics. And ultimately, I'd like to come back to discussing when we could do that, whether we turn that January 22nd into a joint meeting or whether after the 22nd, it's possible to do some other meeting in the following week, 2 weeks, but we can return to that in a minute. By February 14th, the estimators owe the team completed design development estimates. We then will spend a handful of days analyzing both estimates and then reconcile both of them, which is really just a critical meeting with the entire project team to figure out why there are discrepancies, why different estimators saw some discrepancies, and get the two estimates really tied into each other. We then, in February 26th, are looking to do the real budget and cost update. That would require a school building committee motion to then submit that to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the first week of March. So as noted, we'll come back to this, but I want to have a discussion with you folks of when, after those two dates in bold, the second one, January 22nd, February 26th, when around or just after those dates, we could do the design overview with the school committee and then the cost update. I'm also coordinating with the city council. Right now, they just have January 27th meeting where we'll do the design update. They have not yet scheduled February, March meetings, so we'll work with them. And just as an overall reminder to everyone, at this point, in terms of approvals and motions, the school building committee is where that all happens. For this phase and future phases, we're not seeking any motions or decisions from the school committee or city council, but just like every other group in the city, we need your input. We're seeking your input and comments. Keep in mind, this is an iterative process. We'll keep moving. And I can talk a little bit more about that on the next two slides. So next slide, please, Dr. Kelly. While we're documenting the project, the other big thing that I'm sure you all understand we're doing is going through a pretty intensive permitting process. We had the first step of 3 in the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, MEPA, process completed and approved earlier this month. They also issued a phase 1 site demolition waiver, which allows us to hold the schedule and get out there April, May of next year and start demolishing the remnant foundations of the old dog track and pavement, old abandoned utilities, etc. There's a whole lot of old stuff down there, and it was really impactful for our schedule to be able to get out there and remove all that stuff before the end of next year when we plan to get into other items. The phase 1 site waiver is always subject to an additional multi-week comment period. So that is out there right now. The submission was approved by the 23rd. I actually looked at this date twice. I put the wrong 23rd is the when the comment window closes, and they will issue the actual certificate to the city within a week. So the wording's a little poor up there. It'll be issued by the basically by the new year, but the public comment period runs through the 23rd of this month. We are already focusing.
Sorry, Brian, is that something that we want people to weigh in on, that public comment period?
Yes, and I know tomorrow there'll be some through both the school and the city. We do now have a link. It's a very confusing link, so we're going to send out a press update of a link or a direct email to MEPA where people can put in their support like they did earlier in the month and last month. Their website's a little weird right now. So I think we'll put out a press release that has the link to the Environmental Monitor state website, but we'll also include an email to our designated MEPA reviewer.
Mr. Day, can we have a question?
Quick question. Between February of 2025 and July of 2025, when those impact reports are being submitted, what physically is happening on the property, if anything?
In February, nothing. By July, we'll be ripping up the old foundations, ripping up asphalt, abandoned electrical, plumbing, utilities, basically deleting the remnants of everything that was there. We're not building the building yet next summer. We're removing everything we can from the site so that we're ready to build by the end of next year. Moving dirt around, basically. Yep.
And just to clarify, with next summer, we mean the summer that's coming up, not a year and a half.
Correct, sorry, yep. And we'll hit that in a little more detail just on the third of 3 slides. So while we're going through this MEPA process, the DEIR is what we're focusing on right now for February submission. We'll then have the final FEIR, final environmental impact report in July. As we go through all that, we're doing Mass DOT, Department of Transportation permitting, and Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection permitting. We will be back in front of the Revere Conservation Commission at some TBD point this winter to file a notice of intent for that demo phase. So the next time we're at Revere Conservation, it's just about phase 1, just removing the paving, utilities, foundation. As all of this, everything on the screen becomes complete by August 1st of this coming year, we will get back in front of the Conservation Commission with a notice of intent for the full project. And after that, it's really just securing local building permits. So the state permitting and the environmental permitting with Concom leads us to just the ability to pull building permits. And ultimately, it leads to the next slide, which will show that we anticipate building for real. What I mean by that, again, is not just pushing dirt around, not just deleting old foundations, but building the building. So as I said, we're at the end of the design development phase now. That phase will conclude in February. We're going to bid the site, bid package 1. Ultimately, we'll have 3 bid packages for the project. The third will be gigantic. The first few will be relatively limited in size. Site demolition, we're going to bid from the design development documents. That'll be out on the street for bid in March, April. And we anticipate at some point in April or by early May, having all the bidding process complete, having permitting complete for the phase 1. And that will lead to what I've just mentioned of removing things from the site most of next summer. During that, right as we finish the design development phase, we move into the 60% construction document phase. That culminates in July. We will be bidding the trades listed at the bottom of the page from that milestone set: foundations, concrete, steel, underground utilities, elevators, waterproofing. Those are all items that we need to get into first, or long lead items. Believe it or not, elevators take forever. So it doesn't seem like we won't have a space to put an elevator for another 1.5 years, 2 years, but we've got to get it ordered at the end of next year. So we'll then move, after that bid package goes out, we'll move into the 90% construction document phase, July through November. And as noted before, by August, we plan to be complete with permitting, secure the local construction permits, and fully mobilize on site to start not just removing items, but building the building in August. The final construction documents will be out by the end of 2025, and that's what we'll bid the remainder of the project from. So everything outside of that, foundations, concrete, steel, underground, utilities, elevators, waterproofing, we'll bid off of the final set. That bidding will take place. Some of those are public filed sub-bid, some of them are private bids through the contractor. That bidding will take place over the winter of 2026 into spring. Construction substantial completion remains May 2028. We'll follow that up with a 2 to 3 month process of having all of the furniture, fixtures, equipment, technology, and staff training in that new building, and open up at the beginning of the school year in 2028. So everything we know of now, we remain on budget, we remain on schedule, but the rubber's really going to start hitting the road in the coming months as we get this design development phase done, as we demonstrate that we're on budget, and as we start moving into actually bidding. What I will say about estimating, final comment, then we'll stop for some questions. We'll be running estimates at the end of each of these phases. So we're not only doing, this isn't the final estimate we're going to do in the project. When we complete the 60% documents, we'll do a whole new set of estimates based on all the progress. By 90%, we'll do the same, except for the things we've already bid. It's pointless to estimate them if we've already bought them. So we will do estimates at the end of DD, at 60%, at 90%, and at the final construction to verify that we're staying on schedule and on budget.
Mrs. Snell had a question.
Sure.
The phase 1 and phase 2 of the Conservation Commission, somewhere back there was some concern of flooding, creating another habitat situation down there. Has that been resolved, or is that an issue?
That more or less, almost that entire environmental permitting process is focused on that. We have, we've deployed level monitors through the whole Eastern County ditch and upstream of it to gauge the influence of storms on the site, tidal influence on the site, and all of that's being fed into the design, drainage, etc. So we won't be able to secure those permits if we don't demonstrate to both the state and Concom that the site we're designing is impervious to flooding as humanly possible. To some degree, parts of the site are designed to flood and release water slowly out into the marsh. So parts of that area, when you see the plan that just look like open areas of grass, are actually low-lying areas that are intended to flood.
Was the original intent, are there concern flooding and/or a whole ecosystem starting to develop in there?
It's a little bit of both, and part of the MEPA process, for example, they had us do a tree survey. They had us note what species are down there, what's growing, and a lot of that was sort of required to replicate. The good thing from a permitting point of view, and honestly from a city point of view, is out of that 30-acre site, it's almost 22 acres of paved area. And a lot of the pavement's broken, things start growing through it, but we're going to have an overall reduction of that sort of pavement on the site by something in the realm of, I think, 6-7 acres. So we're very much greening the site through this process. There's going to be a lot more green, a lot more planting, a lot more open area than there has been since that's all been turned into a large parking lot decades ago.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want me to show them just the one picture of what Dawn shared with us today?
Yeah, sure.
It might just, it might help people just to visualize exactly what you're talking about, so.
And want me to speak to this really quick, Dr.
Sure.
Kelly? So
Yeah.
you'll first off see there are two different landscape architects working on this, one focusing on the fields, the athletic facilities and fields, one focusing on the open and green space areas. The open and green space areas are the ones that are highlighted in the color. The fields, this wasn't the purpose of this presentation, but what you're seeing here is the entire school surrounded by various landscape elements that are designed to engage students, staff, and really give this the campus feel that we heard loud and clear from various committees as one of the main drivers of selecting this site. You'll notice that some of the area, that diagonal sort of line through the site is the Eastern County Ditch. That drains out the right of the screen here, or generally up to north, up to the marsh. And we will be developing areas on the other side of that, mostly into sort of passive recreation, walking areas. There's various educational components of that to bring students and educators through marsh areas. So a lot of that area, if you can sort of picture the site now, a ton of that area, including the fields, is all paved over. So that when I was referencing that we're creating 6-7 acres more of green space than is there now, that's what Dr. Kelly's scrolling through is sort of what you're seeing.
I'm trying
here.
to find a cross-section of the, did I already go by
I'm not
it?
sure there was to give you the in this excuse me presentation.
Sorry, this is what I'm looking for. This gives you a sense of, so one of the things, Mr. Sinella, that I think that you were referencing is that there have been some identified wetlands on the property. And so one of the things we're required to do is recreate that. And so that's what you saw in the upper right-hand screen when I was showing the whole property line a minute ago. If we zoom in on that, this is what we're imagining it to look like in the end. So it's that multi-level, different tiered that Brian was talking about that will absorb some of the water, creating the wetland over here with a nature classroom, a walkway all the way around the wetlands, including the relocation of the osprey nest that's currently in a light pole over there, actually creating a proper osprey nest. And there'd be these walking paths around that wetlands where classes could come out and do some studying, but also the community could come out. It's the whole loop is a quarter mile. And the different areas included in here, they're going to be very careful to plant them in a way that you get to learn all of the different aspects of what a wetland is. So I'm sorry if I go too fast, but I'm going to scroll down, I think, to another picture that will show a little more of this.
Looks like the bird sanctuary.
Kind of does a
Speaking
lot
of
of the
the
same
bird
idea.
sanctuary, right?
Same species,
So
same.
this is
there you
kind
go.
of a cross section of what it would look like around, and you can see the different berms and the different levels that would let down into the actual wet area of the wetlands. And one thing that our architect is looking to do is include, again, in this area, which would really be a space for people to learn, is all of the different aspects of wetland, including a forested upland, shrub wetland, wet meadow, a high salt marsh, a low salt marsh, and an aquatic edge. And you can see all of those pieces fit in here, so it really becomes a learning center. And then on the other end of the building, you also see these other couple of areas that will be lower than the actual grade of the building, where there'll be different accumulation, intentional, to prevent flooding.
In the inevitable, mega rainstorm, a lot of what you see here in the blue shades is intended to become little ponds. It's not going to look like there's little ponds on a dry season, or certainly in a drought. But part of the design that the Conservation Commission and MIPA and all them are looking for is it centers around resiliency, in that we have areas that are designed to take the water and then slowly let them out. So on a really wet season, it might look like there's a little pond back there. In a really dry season, it'll look like marsh grass.
Well, they had that behind the tote board for years. There was a massive body of water.
Yep.
If I may? Yes. Thank you, Brian. The capacity of the school is, I believe, 2,500?
2,450 students.
Okay. One of my concerns is, down the line, if there's a decline in, say, enrollment, and we have extra, classrooms or whatever, are we, kind of set up where I know we talked about it, where, vocational, and, as, whether there'll be a, how can I say it, as an elective or full vocational course. Is the school set up for that capacity in the plans?
I think if for a decline in enrollment, by the time that we turn the project over and the MSBA closes out the project, which will take a year and a half after the project's done, building's yours at that point. You can use it however you see fit. If enrollment declines, you can repurpose classrooms in other areas. A lot of these areas are designed to be flexible.
Do we have movable walls and?
There's a lot of operable walls, a lot of flex learning spaces. So it really would be up to the administration of the school committee to figure that out.
But is it? I was just wondering if the structure was set up for it. So
yeah,
we have movable walls and so on.
What the state actually requires, I know it's not what you asked, but the MSBA requires the opposite. In case population rises, we have diagrams that we'll be including on how to expand the building in the event that's needed. But they don't necessarily ask about if enrollment goes down, how are you going to use the space?
Okay. No, because I know Saugus has that issue with the decline in enrollment.
Really?
And I'm not sure if the school was a setup where they could bring in the vocational course. I was wondering if we were able to do that, and the answer is yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can get into more. I know that the meeting in January is when the designs are going to be a little bit more developed. Part of that plan is to share all of that in January. But the whole first floor, when you come in, is what we call the heart of the school. And off of that are the different areas. Like there's the main kitchen that's going to service the food service program for the school. But there's a separate kitchen over the side for the hospitality pathway that will be a little bit smaller and have a restaurant attached, where I'm imagining that's where teachers will eat lunch most days, and that the kids who are in the hospitality program will learn how to run the front of a house by servicing that cafeteria. But they would need to have access to some kitchen items in order to make that function well. So there'll be a small kitchen over there. The robotics room is being designed so that it rolls right out into the hallway, so that their space that they're using during the day as a classroom, there's like a garage door that lifts up, and then that their floor mat spills out, so they have a space that's large enough to be a practice mat, but it gets rolled away during the day when there's classes and shut down. So it's all built to be very malleable and changeable. The maker space is the same way. That's up near the front of the auditorium, but it's a big open space with all of the different tools and electrical access that it can be for 3D printing different pieces that they need for the robotics class, or it can be a machine shop similar to the machine shop that's going to be attached to the robotics room. So there'll be all of those different pieces that pour out into the heart of the school. So 5 years from now, you could decide we're not going to do robotics anymore, we're going to do electronics. And everything is right there that they need to do that.
And one item that I'd add that's just unique to this school, because of the environmental reasons and having to raise the first floor of the building up so high, that's how you ended up getting a garage under the building. What I'll say about that, it's kind of minor, but if you're looking at long-term, usually the first floor of a building, you're never going to be able to change that much. You're never going to get new drains underneath the slab because you've got an open garage under it. This first floor, long-term, has a lot more flexibility than most ground floors of other schools, just because of that. You could build from below. You could get different pipes in. You could move sinks to where they weren't before, et cetera.
One of the nice things with, if you do with the hospitality, is the kids who are in the course just invite their parents in, and they just kind of cook for their parents. You know, it's a nice thing where the parents get to see what the kids are actually learning.
Thank you.
Mr. Kingston?
I'm just trying to be a little funny. Thank you for adding a word to my vocabulary. Microforest was a new word to me.
Yeah, is that
We've
cool?
got a lot of them in the design
Yeah.
profession. There's a lot of made-up words.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinella?
Is the entire site geared for the high schools?
Yes.
There's not going to be surplus land that could be redeveloped?
Right now, no. Now, what I will say is the land behind the Eastern County ditch, which right now we went through a lot of the features that are there. We're not building any structures over there. That land theoretically, long-term, is developable. I know the city's embarking on a feasibility study to figure out if a commuter rail stop could fit over the tracks in there somehow. That would require some degree of egress, ingress from vehicles, from people. So we do have to plan for and build the entire site so that it is resilient, it drains, it adheres to all the codes. But the area behind the ditch, in theory, could be used for different purposes long-term. But to fit the site program and the parking we need, we're basically, and to have drainage areas, low-lying areas that feed into drains, we're basically building on the entire beach side of the Eastern County ditch.
All right, the second question is that there was talk of a fire station on the corner of North Shore Road, and I don't know the first street. Is that still viable, or has that been scrapped, or, I mean, is that being included, space for that?
It's not right now, and it's actually, we've been meeting with police and fire a lot lately, and I am not going to pretend like I'm speaking for them, but it's tough, as the city encountered with the Point of Pines fire station, because you've got to raise these first floors up out of the floodplain. That's extremely difficult with apparatus bays. And it's not quite impossible, but it's a lot harder than building a school. So the amount of space that would be needed to get a large or a medium-sized station down there is probably even more than one of these fields. Long story short, I don't believe with this development it would be really possible to fit a fire station down there. But I'm not an architect.
Oh, no,
I just play one on
because
TV.
that was talked about,
Yep.
whether it was inclusive. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just got one, and you folks, I'd just like the committee to keep in mind those dates when, if you guys want to have your own, I'd like you all to hear it while it's still pretty new. So if you folks, we could do a joint meeting in January. You could schedule your own meeting towards the end of January. I'd ask that you folks just figure that out, let us know. But I'd like you to hear it before it's old news and we go into the February topics of looking at 1 million numbers or 500 million numbers.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll let you know
Thanks,
about
Brian.
that.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Any reports of the subcommittees? None? No reports, right? Okay. And we have a few motions. Mr. Kingston?
Motion by myself,
Microphone.
to grant the same longevity step increase that has been, I apologize. Motion by myself to grant the same longevity step increase that has been granted to the employees of the ASME contract, any non-union employees currently receiving longevity benefit.
Second.
Discussion. I know, Mr. Kingston, I think there's, my question, I think we got some information on what this meant to the unit. Ms. Rizzo?
No,
Oh,
I was just waiting until we discussing.
yeah,
I thought we were.
so we're discussing.
Oh, you can finish what
Sure.
you're saying.
So, did we get a full number on what the, this is gonna be in total per year, or?
Yes.
Okay, can we let everyone know?
It was around 30,000, I think.
Yeah.
In the meantime, can I bring up my
Yes, Ms. Rizzo.
thought? And I appreciate where Mr. Kingston's coming with this, very much so. But when we're not a right-to-work state, and our employees in the union pay dues to have people negotiate for them, so I don't want it to be seen as a strategy to discourage unionization. And I'm just leery about starting to give extra benefits when we're not unions. And I'm not sure how fair that is to the unions.
Ms. Milbury? Okay.
Sure. So it's my understanding that I totally get where Stacy's coming from, and in no way are we trying to dilute the effects and the strength that unions have. But my understanding was that there are select individuals or positions who have always received the longevity increase off the heels of the back of the RTA negotiations and the contract. And AFSCME, correct. And that's who is going to receive this benefit. Is that correct? Okay.
Do you want me to?
That was some of the clarity I was looking for, and I'll get it.
Sure. So one of the email that I had sent you all after there were some inquiries from Mr. Kingston about this at last month's meeting, excuse me, was that we have 102 non-union employees, which include technology staff, principals, security translators, family liaisons, some folks in the business office, superintendents, assistant superintendents, student engagement coordinators, and then there's a handful of other one-off positions that fall into this non-union category. It's a total of 102 people. 36 of those 102 are eligible, I'll put that in air quotes, meaning that they have had a number of years in the district that would, if they were in the ASME unit, qualify them for longevity. Of those 36, 29 already receive longevity for whatever reason. It was built into their contracts or their agreements, whatever the case may be. So if you were to give, upgrade the longevity amount for those 29 employees to meet what we've agreed to for AFSCME, it would cost the district $30,750. If you were to also include the 7 other employees who are eligible but not currently receiving longevity, that would add an additional $25,200. And my understanding was that's what the committee was contemplating, if they should give it just to the people who are already, give the increase in longevity just to the people who are already receiving longevity so that they would stay kind of on a matched field with the AFSCME employees.
Ms. Milbury Ellis.
And just to further clarify, Dr. Kelly, those individuals the 29 that already received the longevity, this is something that is brought up at the school committee meetings and voted on for them to receive this benefit?
I don't know that has, I feel like there have been different votes of the school committee over the years, And sometimes they have said, vote the COLA. Sometimes they've said, vote the COLA and any other monetary benefits. Sometimes, like, the language has been different over the years, and that's why I think we have resulted with, and either Mr. Sinella or Mrs. Rizzo might be able to add to this because they've both got the historical knowledge, but the way the committee has voted to extend those raises or benefits or whatever to non-union employees has varied, and that's why different people may have longevity or may not have longevity or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
I don't know if Fred or Stacy want to.
Well, at one time, there's what they called an agency fee. If you didn't belong to the union, it just so happened the fee was what your union dues were, so that people would pay. I thought that was somewhere amended somehow through the state, but they can charge a portion of union dues if they're negotiating for a group. It's never come out to us, but it has, this person, that person, it has happened. So you've got 3 or 4 different windows of what you're doing, and I'm surprised that there are people who are benefiting that some union hasn't tried to incorporate them. I don't think we have a right to say that you have to belong. It's a choice. But as was alluded, that if you're getting benefits and you're not part of it, it's somewhere along the line, it's going to come back to bite us.
Is there a choice for these individuals?
No, they're not.
Okay.
So, Mr. Caggiano and Ms. Kingston?
To my understanding, by looking into the motion, these people were grandfathered in many, many years ago. How that was way before me. So basically, these chosen, what is 29 individuals, were grandfathered in who are currently receiving the longevity raises and were included in the budget for going forward. So it's not a monetary issue. It was already included in. It was under the assumption that they were going to get the COLA raises plus the longevity. If we add other people to it, now you're talking about another 70 or 80. This motion is only concerning the 29 individuals, or what is it? Whatever the number of individuals who currently received it in the past. It's not, this motion is not to increase the number of non-union people who never received longevity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston.
My understanding that these folks, I don't want to say not welcome, but they're not in the union because they don't want to be. It's because my understanding, and I don't want to say the wrong words, but basically they weren't welcome into those unions. So they're kind of in betwixt and between. What I want to be clear on is the ASME longevity was increased. So yes, they got the longevity increase, but they got it at the previous rate, not the current rate. So that's what the problem is. So the longevity stipend, whatever word to use, was increased for the ASME folks, but the longevity given to the non-union folks was the old stipended rate before the new contract. So I'm just trying to make them even with what they used to get per past practice. If someone wants to include the other 7 people, I don't have a problem with that at all. It's only about $5,000 based on Dr. Kelly's math. I thought it went from 25 to 30.
So the $30,750 is what it would cost to bring the 29 employees to the new levels for longevity. And that includes because some of them are switching category of longevity. Somebody might be going from they might be getting the 10-year amount, but they're in year 14, they go to year 15, they get a bump, and then they also get the increase that the school committee approved for AFSCME, right? Mm-hmm. Separate from them, so those are nominal changes because those people are already getting longevity payments, exactly like you said, John, according to the old AFSCME salary schedule. There are 7 others in the district who would be eligible because they've been here for 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 years, who are not currently receiving longevity. To bring those 7 in, because they'd be starting with 0 longevity dollars, to bring them up in longevity, it would actually cost an additional $25,000. So all in, the whole thing would be $55,000. That's the whole, to give everybody the longevity.
If,
And I just, if my 2 cents is worth anything, I think that voting it for the 29 employees, not the other 7, is gonna make those 7 feel incredibly alienated. I wasn't aware myself, I'll be honest, that how many, that 29 out of the 36 were already receiving longevity payments. But anyway, that's just.
Ms. Rizzo.
I just wanted to say, this is not about a dollar amount at all, because that's really no money at all. This is about, first of all, and then I'm going to say, never have I been on here that we voted longevity. We voted COLA, but we've never voted longevity. They're not, we don't know what their contracts, if they have contracts stated. I mean, I wouldn't know, huh?
Most of them
And
don't
on
have
your-
contracts, like the technology people, you know?
But
Yeah.
then how is
They
it,
have offer
how are
letters,
they authorized to have longevity?
Because there have been times, and I did look into this because I was trying to understand it myself. There have been times when the committee has voted to give the COLA and all other monetary benefits. That was the language used in a couple of the years. Robin actually did the research for me, so I'm looking at her. And so when they said all other monetary benefits, people who qualified at that time had longevity added to their salaries.
I believe.
So that's the practice.
yeah, already got, John.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
If I may.
Mr. Caggiano.
You finished? Yeah.
Mr. Caggiano.
Oh, okay. No, what I wanted to say was, a lot of times when we have contracts, union contracts, there's like a two-tier. People are grandfathered in. These people were grandfathered in. If we add the 7, which I don't really have a problem with the 7, there's still 80 or 82 other people that you're leaving out. So if you're doing for 7, then you got to do for 82. The only thing I'm asking you to do in this motion is just the people that were grandfathered in receive the same longevity raises that they received in the past. That's all.
Well, Mr. Caggiano, and I kind of agree with what you're saying there. I think that this is going to probably need a little bit more clarity, because even tonight I'm learning new things just from this piece. But we've negotiated, just this last year, I've negotiated on 9 different contracts. Every one of them's different. And then every one of them, every 3 years, something changes. Sometimes we roll things in. You know, a union will agree, and this is happening, will agree to roll things in, and because rather than getting a stipend, they'd rather roll it into a salary. That increases their pensionable income, that increases their overtime rate, et cetera. And then 3 years later, they come back and they go, you know what, we rolled it in, but now we want another stipend. These go back and forth from year to year, so it's one of those where, if a union, and I'll use AFSCME for instance, negotiated something out to benefit their base salary, how do you factor that in? It's just, all of these contracts, as you know, they're all different. The teacher's contract is much different than the Paris contract, is much different than the administration agreement in the AFSCME. I have police unions, we have fire unions, we have a different AFSCME at City Hall, we have Local 22 at City Hall, we have Unit A, we have Unit B. They're wildly inconsistent intentionally because each union battles for different things and they have different priorities. I don't want to leave out 29 people at the tune of, again, and it's not about the money, like Ms. Rizzo said, at all, but before we vote on anything, we don't even know who we're voting for. We could be voting for someone that we shouldn't be voting for, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what unions this affects, or non-unions. And then the last piece, I just want to say this because this happened, but the city council made some money moves on people last year, and I had 2 unions come to me, threaten to file grievances, because they were voting on pay, and they actually pulled an employee, because of the bump they got, pulled themselves out of the union. And almost threatened to file DLR on the city because of that raise given by an elected body, not by a contract negotiation. We were able to amicably settle it, but it gets very scary when these bodies start voting on arbitrary raises. I get calls from people that want it, and I'm telling you right now, God's honest truth, I got calls from 2 union employees that said, what are we doing? We fight for these rights.
On these, in this
On these, we fight for these rights, and
No,
you're
no,
just
no,
giving them
talking
away.
about this situation?
Correct, correct. And they say, we fight for these rights, and you're just giving them away, so what are we doing? I'm just plain devil's advocate here.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Fernando.
I think the question here is that the system itself is kind of antiquated. Now, when the superintendent hires, she made reference to the tech people. They're hired at a certain salary. Their assumption is that they'll get raises. Now, whether she has to deal directly with them remains to be seen. What we're trying to do is people who were hired in the group of people, you mentioned principals, you mentioned, well, they're under contract. When you hire them, there's so much going on. So maybe the categorization has to be changed, whether they're union or non-union. I mean, the expectation is if they get a raise, I want a raise. So that's what probably the clarity has to come. Past practice, grandfathered, I don't remember grandfathering people. Maybe it's through attrition, maybe it's through how it's been done in the past. But I think it's got to be looked at to straighten it out, to be equity, but at what cost? You don't want lawsuits, you don't want, so I think, to you, the superintendent, what's your feel? I mean, you've hired people who have gotten raises over the years. Are these some of the people that are looking to be parity now?
They are. I think it's exactly what you said, Mr. Sinella, is people look around and say, whoa, they just got what raise? I want that same raise, right? And typically, the school committee has responded by, whenever you vote the AFSCME contract, you typically make that motion to extend the COLA raise
To everybody else.
to everybody who's non-union. And that's routine practice. What hasn't been routine is whether it's just the COLA, or if it's the COLA and longevity, or other benefits, sick leave, parental leave, all of the other things. Sometimes that's been afforded to them, and sometimes it hasn't, and that creates definitely some consternation. And I think right now, what happened was, after this time, the first vote that the committee took was to extend the COLA to all non-union people, right? So that would be your principals, your assistant superintendents, your technology people, your parent liaisons, all of these people. It's a very different, eclectic group of people that are in the non-union category. And some of them are saying, okay, thank you for that raise, but what about my longevity, which you gave to them? Don't I get more longevity now that I was getting longevity? Does that make any sense?
Yes.
I think
It
that's
does.
what's creating
I don't know if anyone else understands. I think we all understand what you're saying, but.
No, the only thing I'm gonna say is, this is not something that's new. It's just being grandfathered in. The motion is just for the 26. If you decide you wanna look, or whatever that number is, if you wanna go beyond that, then we could take it up a different motion, but we gotta go into Ways and Means, and then we can really take a good look at it. But, I mean, as far as these people have gotten it in the past, I mean, they probably have got the same raises, the same longevity, and to not give it to them this time around, it's just like if someone is, it's like we have a two-tier in a union contract, and some get more money, or some get more vacation than others, or sick time. One of the contracts we had was, if you started before such a date, you had so many days vacation and sick time. But if you started after this date, you get a lot less. So the only thing I'm saying is these particular people, and then when they go and retire, or whatever the case may be, is that longevity situation retires with them. That's all.
I understand what you're saying there. I tend to agree with that statement, but that's the question. If we do this, and I think you're right, we have 29, I'm glad that you clarified, 29 people that are already getting longevity, and it would just be increasing the longevity to the consistency of the other contract. But then, what about the other 90, 80 people?
Is it, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm getting confused, and Dr. Kelly, I think, can help me. The 7 is the 100, isn't it?
No, so.
What is the 7?
What
is the 7?
So the 102 are all of the non-union employees.
But only 7 are eligible.
Listen, hear me out for a minute. So the 102 are all of the non-union employees, principals, technology staff members, parent liaisons, security people, translators, a lot of different categories that fall into that 102. Of those 102, there are 36 who have been here long enough that if the committee was so inclined, they would be eligible for longevity payments, right? So they've been here for at least 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever the case may be. There's 36 of them. 29 of them are already getting longevity. 7 are not. And so right now, it's the 29 who are already getting it, the 7 who are going to be angry if you give it to the 29 and not the 7. The 7 probably don't know the 29 are getting the longevity. I didn't know there were 20. I know, right? But you're right that it opens up the can of worms that what happens if the rest of those 102.
But they're not eligible yet.
They're not eligible yet.
Well, they
If they stay, they will be. If they stay for a long
If they
time,
stay,
they will
then we
be.
have a long-term employee, and it's not a bad thing. That's what longevity's for.
And
So, can I, all right.
that is
can
a
I-
good point, yeah.
Can I make a motion that we, I don't want to use the wrong words, to grant the same longevity step increase that has been granted to the employees of the ASME contract to the 36 individuals identified by Dr. Kelly? Does that work?
Substitute motion then.
Substitute motion, that we grant the same longevity step increase as has been granted to the employees of the ASME contract to the 36 employees identified by Dr. Kelly.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, discussion? No discussion. Well, we've been discussing it. I think we beat it. to
I'll bring it up.
All right.
If we add the 7 people, then we left out the 82 people.
No, we didn't. They're not eligible yet. It's only 36. That's the magic number.
Yeah, but it will be at some point.
Yeah, at some point, we will, who knows?
And then,
We'll
are
be
you
around
not
then.
gonna give it to them, those 82? I'm just saying is,
I think future committees will have to decide when they make those motions to extend the benefits
In the next
from
contract.
ASME to non-union, they'll have to decide that if they want to include longevity in that.
I mean, the door's already been open, right?
Yeah.
These people have already been receiving this benefit. There's no going back. So now it's just a matter of fairness. I just don't see giving it to 29 and not extending it to 7 that are eligible and that are in the same boat. Because the rationale behind it is just because we're trying to be fair. So for me, yeah. I'm seconding John's motion to extend the longevity step increase to the 36 eligible non-union employees.
Employee retention is so important, and if someone sticks around for 15 years, I think they should be rewarded. I don't have a problem with that, and I don't think excluding 7 people is the right way to go either. So I'd like a roll call.
So discussion, any other discussion? Roll call. We have a roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Abstain.
Mr. Caggiano,
yes.
Mr. Kingston,
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Yes.
Ms. Monterosso, Mr. Sinella,
Yes.
Mayor Keefe.
Yes. Motion succeeds. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I think at this time, we should instruct the superintendent to take a look-see at people who she's hired, or indirectly half the time we've hired them, to kind of come up with some kind of a formula or something has to be. I mean, if somebody's hired and after 3 or 4 years, they're expecting a raise, I mean, it's just, I don't know how to word it, but it's, because this is going to perpetuate itself.
Well, I know that the old days, it was a little different, but I can tell you from the city end, we hire, everyone has offer letters, everyone has benefit packages, and their expectation is very well known. For the most part, they are, a lot of our city employees are union, but in some cases, they are not. Those additional fringe benefits, let's call them, tend to be negotiated in sometimes in agreement. If you're trying to recruit the best and the brightest, sometimes you say, they look at other union contracts and they say, I'd like to be able to have this in my agreement. And that's great. I don't know who takes a job and doesn't know what they're stepping themselves into this day and age, especially with the information that's out there. But otherwise, this was a good thing that we did to help create some consistency. But yes, at some point in time, creating even more, let's call it, and I hate the word transparency because I think it's overused, but create a little bit more of a clear understanding of what is in the total compensation package for everybody.
I agree.
Okay? There you go. Thank you. Okay. Unfinished business, Miss Bronson Rizzo. Motion, sorry, motion, apologies.
Oh, I thought the secretary would have read it. But,
Wait. You want me to read it for you?
yes,
I'd like to read
please,
it
go
for you.
for it.
And this is a great idea, Miss
You know
Bronson
what?
Rizzo.
I have many great ideas.
Spirit of holidays. Late motion by Miss Bronson Rizzo to present certificates of appreciation to heroes and helpers who have contributed to bringing that holiday spirit to 30 of our RPS students and families. Miss Rizzo,
Motion as read.
Second.
discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
So ordered. Thank you, Miss Rizzo.
Could I also add that, maybe extend an invitation to any of the families that were participating in case they wanted to come and say thank you also?
Of course.
'Cause Robin has nothing else to do.
Okay. No unfinished business? Any new, well, we have one bit of new business. I shouldn't say new, but just we want to wish everyone a happy holidays. This is our last school committee meeting of the year. Before we wrap up the year, we want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season and enjoy it. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So ordered. Have a good night.